Can't wait no more. Gotta start. You know what I'm saying, folks? Hot mic, right? Hot mic. Yup. All right, it is what it is. See you in a hot second. So, welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, People's Pundit. Don't forget to like the videos if you like them and share them far and wide. I'm going to shut up. We'll do the spiel when we come back from playing this clip because I think it's more important to play this clip on the intro than it is to hear me go on and on. Sunday shows were brutal for Joe Biden. He tried to punch back this morning. All right, so let's just get right into it.
Now, before we get to our guests, I want you, the viewers at home, to know something. Our team has spent days reaching out to dozens of lawmakers and Biden advocates and allies. We've had numerous interactions with the Biden-Harris campaign, but not a single potential guest was either able or willing to join us on today's show to defend the president and his decision to stay on the ticket. So we will be having a conversation without that voice, which we have been working around the clock to avoid. Joining me now, former Ohio Democratic Congressman Tim Ryan. Welcome to the show, sir.
So Tim Ryan goes on, and I mean, well, you know, big deal. Tim Ryan obviously ran against J.D. Vance in 2022 and lost by about, 6-7 points, something like that. You know, so they're having a hard time finding anybody who will come on and defend Joe Biden. And, you know, I'm not surprised. There are people, look, there are donors, Democratic donors who are now having a bit of a heart attack, a bit of a panic attack. And that's the big deal here because I'm going to play a clip from somebody else in a second. And this is a guy who Democratic donors call and ask, you know, his opinion. And he's thought of as a straight shooter. So when the donors call and ask opinions, which they do to me all the time on the Republican side. So when they ask your opinion, you know, they are calling you and they want you to give it to them straight. And then this guy goes on a television program and gives it the way he does. Look, this is a smart guy who knows the states have laws. He knows Democrats, he is the convention rules, the nomination rules. He knows what kind of a Herculean task it would be to replace Joe Biden, and yet he's still advocating for it. So it is tough to get people to come on to a program if the donors are against you. Tim Ryan is not running, so he jumps on with Shannon Breen to talk about it. But even that interview was a little bit, I mean, it wasn't just like a support Joe Biden fest. It was, that's Tim Ryan. I mean, it was a little bit more of a straight talker. There's like a bunch of clips. This one that I want to play first is the guy I'm talking about, obviously, and I'm referring to David Axelrod, and he goes on one of the Sunday shows yesterday, and he says, look, this is what it is. We're not going to play the whole clip. It is a bit of a longer clip. I'm going to interject and jump in and out. After the Axelrod thing, then we're going to talk about why David Axelrod is saying what he's saying. All right, we'll get into some of the numbers, but let's do it. Let's bring this up. Let's shoot here for, is this the one? It is. Okay, so let me put it up full screen. Let's go, and I'm going to interject every couple of seconds here.
Right after President Biden's interview aired Friday, you posted on X that he is dangerously out of touch. Why do you say that?
Well, because listening to the interview, he seemed to deny where he is in the race. He seems not to grasp what is the big concern that people have. You know, let me just say about the president, Pam, that his whole life he has overcome tremendous loss and tremendous odds.
Is it me? Because when I was listening to this interview, I immediately thought, and I got so I thought to myself, how sick and tired I am of hearing people in politics talk like that and say things like that. He did lose his son. He did not lose him on the battlefield, by the way. He lost his son to brain cancer. And then his other son started banging his widow. Anyway, I'm so sick of these people saying like they've overcome incredible odds. A friend of ours, he's an older gentleman. My wife met him when she was management for the school system in Florida, right? One of the school systems in Florida. Wonderful man, super on top of things, anything Laura ever needed. Just a wonderful husband, a wonderful family man. This guy just lost, and he's an older gentleman. This guy just lost his second son. Okay? Second son. And he's like, I know God's got a plan. I just don't know what it is. I mean, this is the kind of stuff. This is stuff everyone has in life, and it's awful and it stinks. But for the most part, these people are privileged. Joe Biden was a mediocre student, kind of like bumbled his way through life. In his own words, became a political whore of K Street. That's how he got his start. Like, I'm so sick and tired of these people acting like they've done the most, they've dealt with the most adversity, like ever. Like this is the way every American is. Plus, they have to worry about paying the bills. You don't. Plus, they have to worry about a government sandwiching them. You don't. You are that government. When he said it, it just dawned on me that it's that attitude. Like we're all supposed to feel sorry for him or something, right? But anyway, that's what I thought, and I just wanted to share that with you. But what he says after this is what basically I said last week. And speaking of week, this is going to have to start to become soon an everyday show. There's too much going on. I can't fit it all into 2 hours, even if I wanted to. It would be best to do either like minimum of an hour a day. My only issue is the girls are leaving soon and they're going to be gone for like 4 days. So I'm not sure I want to try to do it before then, but it has to happen. So maybe what we're going to do now is the normal schedule, and then Tuesdays and Thursdays when I can, which I think I can, and I'm going to have to, I'll just jump up sporadically and do like an hour on locals or something like that. But soon it has to be for everyone, YouTube, locals, and maybe I can actually do it for YouTube members as well. It's easier to just jump on locals real quick and do like maybe a half an hour commentary about something that may have happened. But there's just way too much going on. For instance, I'm just about to get on, show you these clips, and Emerson drops a bunch of polls, by the way, for a Democratic sponsor, which is weird. Anyway, and those are worth talking about. There's just too much happening. But listen to what he says next.
I mean, his personal loss is well known, extraordinary and horrible, and he's fought his way back from that. He's fought his way back from political defeats and against the odds. And so his psyche is that he can beat anybody and any long odds. What he can't beat is Father Time, and that's really the concern here. It's not about his record. Every time he's asked about whether he can do the job until he's closer to 90 than 80, he says, well, look at what I did the last 4 years. Yeah. That's just not the way it works. Yeah. Donald Trump is a almost unprecedentedly a flawed candidate in so many ways. And
in the mind of David Axelrod, because of the way he thinks about politics and what makes a good candidate, what makes a flawed candidate, what makes a bad candidate, right? Somebody who is like, considering everything that's happened to Donald Trump, that's adversity, by the way. But considering everything that's happened to Donald Trump, you would think like that's disqualifying. That's it. So like in his mind, that's what he's thinking. And it shows you he really doesn't grasp actually why Donald Trump is not a flawed candidate, why he is a strong candidate given the conditions we're in right now. And so David Axelrod is thinking, back in 2020, Joe Biden was like the only guy who could beat Donald Trump. Now it's the reverse. Joe Biden's like anyone but Joe could beat Donald Trump. Well, that is not true. And we have shown this over and over again. Biden's going to start to push back on some of these voices, and he's going to say, and this may be the one damn thing I've heard Joe Biden say true for years. Every time the guy opens his mouth, either he's lying intentionally or he's just so clueless he doesn't know better because he's just, out to lunch. But this is the one thing he said that's actually true. We know this to be the case. It is not the case that anyone but Joe Biden would beat Donald Trump. It's simply false. All right, but let's get back to it. But Axelrod is a very conventional thinker.
Represents, I do believe, as the president says, a real danger to democracy. But the one person that no one can outrun is Father Time. Mm-hmm. Tom Brady won a Super Bowl 3 years ago, and he's out of football. Okay, why? Doesn't detract from his greatness or what he's done. It's just there are certain immutable facts of life, and those were painfully obvious on that debate stage. And the president just doesn't seem to he hasn't come to grips with it. He's not winning this race. He's more likely, if you just look at the data and talk to people around the country, political people around the country, it's more likely that he'll lose by a landslide than win narrowly this race. And if the stakes are as large as he says, and I believe they are, then he really needs to consider what the right thing to do here is.
All right, so that's a really sound logic. That's an argument with really sound logic, isn't it? And he's throwing this back at the White House. Like, look, I agree with you. Donald Trump's a threat to democracy, blah, blah, blah. They're all talking Democratic language. And by the way, J.D. Vance comes on and he goes on a Sunday show and just whoops ass. Like, who's the one persecuting political opponents? Who's the one destroying every institution? Who's the one trying to ban people from ballots? Like, he just went off. The guy would be, don't get me wrong, like I said, it would be a tremendous vice president. But, I'm not sure the Senate can afford to lose him if Ohio can afford to lose him. Because let me tell you something, J.D. Vance is out of there. You're getting Dolan. Or some other DeWine hack. That's what you're going to get. All right, so you'll have Bernie and Dolan. Because Bernie is going to beat Sherrod Brown. That's going to happen. Come on. Anyway, moving on. That's a sound, logical argument if you buy the Democratic logic. Now, here's the funny thing. If you talk to all the people around, there's two things I want to say about that. One is, why does 538 still have Biden winning or having any prayer of winning this election? Biden at this point is not only losing, he's losing very badly. For those who are wondering, book club knows, you know how I am. There were things that just went on and I don't like stale data. So we continued. It is basically wrapped up last night and I'll package the poll and put it out very soon. But not a whole lot has changed. And over the course of almost a week, we spoke to over 600 black voters. And it's been just constantly steady at like 25% of the black vote for Donald Trump. We tried to target more urban black voters. This is not like, there are serious problems, and he's going to address that in the clip. Biden is, by the way. All of a sudden, Axelrod said, if you talk to anybody who's knowledgeable, they know he's going to lose. And we're going to play a little bit more of this clip because he gets into some certain states, and I think it's important. He's basically revealing what Democrats and donors are talking about, and leaders, state leaders that are in charge of delivering their state for the president come the Electoral College. He's going to reveal like the insider conversations. If you listen, it's all between the lines. He's going to tell you what is being said in those phone calls, in those meetings, and it's not good for Joe Biden. So I can see that in the polling. So it's like, people, the more morning console poll. The first thing I got from one of the political websites out there, I'm not going to get into it, but it was a phone call saying this poll is trash. And I even defended them and said, look, not for nothing, this is the second time they did this. After the State of the Union, they put out a poll that was almost 3 weeks old to push a narrative that Biden got a bump. How could he get a bump from a speech that the people who were interviewed from the poll didn't even friggin' hear yet? Yet they did that. But that said, I'll still give them the benefit of the doubt. That's what happens when you have such small sample sizes in large battleground states. Like 600 and plus interviews for a state of like Pennsylvania is trash. Trash! It's not enough. All right, so there you have it. And then even Trump was leading in that state. But it doesn't matter. You're going to get these crazy volatile results. In Wisconsin, Biden +4. Yeah, okay. Biden's getting his ass kicked right now. You're not down nationally the way he is down and winning any of these battleground states against somebody like Donald Trump. You're not winning the northern Midwest. You're not winning the mid-Atlantic, competitive areas in the mid-Atlantic. You're certainly not winning any of the South or any of the battleground states in the South. In fact, some of the blue areas of the South are getting very, very close. You're not winning the Sun Belt competitive states. When you're down as much as I see Joe Biden down in the national polling right now, you are getting your ass kicked. So David Axelrod he's right. There is more of a likelihood. There's a higher likelihood that Biden not only loses this election, but loses it badly than it is that he sneaks out a narrow win. Now, we're not talking about a few points here and there anymore, folks. We're talking about a bad result, a bad outcome for Democrats, which will, many of the donors already are saying abandon him and save down ballot. Here's the kicker for that. In the modern era anyway, since definitely the Obama era, because Obama made this a very partisan electorate, one where there is like no split ticket voting. Ironically, Trump the divider saw a return of split ticket splitting more than any other Democrat yet, from Obama to Biden. And split ticket voting or ticket splitting is a sign that the electorate is less partisan and less rigid, less divided. Ironically, the voting patterns show actually people were more open under Trump. It's really ironic and surprising given the media coverage. But you normally cannot save the bottom of the ticket when somebody goes down this bad. Not in the modern era now. You go back to the 80s, Reagan stomped Carter. Democrats still held their own down ballot. They did. I mean, it wasn't really coattails like that. And by the way, during 9/11, there was definitely some coattails. Republicans in general were seen as being able to protect people better. So it hurt Democrats down ballot badly. But let's go in and listen to what David has to say.
It's interesting because you mentioned, the fact that there's nothing you can do about age. It only goes in one direction, right? And what this comes down to is public perception as well. And a lot of people bring up, well, Trump is only a few years behind Biden. But when you look at the public perception in the polls, 42% of those polled said that Trump would be too old for office. 74% said that about Biden. And you have to wonder, we played that clip of when Joe Biden, when he was, then senator, dropped out of the presidential race in 1987. I was speaking to Evan Alsnos, that Biden biographer, and recently, and he said, he was pushed out of politics then. He's not.
Okay. This is a big thing in the psyche of Joe Biden. He was pushed out not once, but twice running for president before. For those who don't know this, in 1987, he was pushed out because he got caught being a serial liar and plagiarist. He was deemed unfit for the presidency. That's what happened in 1987. He tried to come back again when Obama and Hillary wound up scrapping it out together. And the same thing happened within a few months. All the old ghosts came back to haunt him. All the old skeletons fell out of the closet. Only in 2020 did he become something he absolutely never has been. And that's a big, big, big problem for Democrats right now. They sold a lie to the country. In a second, too, there's a clip. We're going to wrap this up after he gets into specific states, but this is what these conventional thinkers like David Axelrod are really not grasping.
Not going to be pushed out of politics again.
Yes.
That is one of the driving factors here of why he's digging in his heels. Is that how you see it as well? What else do you think is at play here with what you think is sort of a state of denial?
He should not view it as being pushed out of politics. Look, Pam, I really have a very high regard for Joe Biden. I served with him in the White House. I thought he was a great vice president. I was glad every day that he was there. He was an important voice in the Obama administration. I think he's done some historically important things, and history will be much kinder to him than voters are being right now.
Sorry.
The question is, what will his reputation be like? What will his legacy be if he persists in this race and loses badly, which is really possible at this point? We elect presidents by the Electoral College. I know there's some polls that speak otherwise, but I've looked at a ton of data, and no one in those states who is knowledgeable would say he's ahead in any of the battleground states. But now you have states like Virginia, Minnesota, Maine. The governors of New Mexico and Maine reportedly told him in that meeting last week that they're not sure he can carry their states, which were presumed to be in his column.
Told you. By the way, can I just stop? Because, really, that's it, and we can be done, because he's just going to go on and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, and I want to get somebody's answer to what he was just... Well, we'll get Biden's answer in a second, but it's like everyone's acting like this is new, and I think it's really important to play this clip that we're going to play to really call it out. I think she did a great job, but told you. When we said months ago, and it was before the debate, the truth is Maine and New Mexico have been at risk of flipping for a long time. You cannot have the demographic shifts that you're seeing in the national polls without New Mexico getting very close. And by the way, at risk of flipping. Everyone focused on Colorado. Every time there's a shift in politics, everybody's, well, maybe Colorado, maybe this, maybe that. Listen, Colorado's like 17% Hispanic in the electorate. The rest is young, educated, white vote. New Mexico will go to Trump before Colorado will. And now you have the addition of third-party voters. Trump, in both cases, did better with Hispanics in New Mexico than he did nationally. Why would we not expect that to be the case again? And given that, he's at roughly, in our polling, he's going to be at like 45% of the Hispanic vote. If that's the case, then there's no reason to suggest he can't do even better in New Mexico. Biden's entire margin, it's like I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but it's worth pointing this out. The debate did not do this. This was happening before. Biden's entire margin in 2020 was due to his lead with Hispanic voters. White people split. Trump carried white people in 2016. He carried white voters, but then they were basically even, 49-49 in 2020. His entire 10-point margin was the margin he had with Hispanics, and there is a very small, but it may be significant, come 2024. There is a small group of Asian other, which consists of Asian voters who are largely educated, and they are bad for Trump, and they're in like the Albuquerque area, Santa Fe, stuff like that. And then there are obviously Native American voters, which are getting worse for Biden. And we saw that in the primaries. We saw it in primary voting areas that are high populations of Native Americans. And those voted very poorly for Joe Biden in the Democratic primary. His margin was very poor among them. And then it was very strong for Donald Trump. So there's obviously even movement there, which again, we see in the polling. So Biden, if he were to lose, let's say he wins the Hispanic vote, 52-48 or 52-45, 54-45, and then a little bit goes to third parties, right? Let's just pretend for a second. Let's just speculate. And then Trump is doing better with whites, which we know he is. So he does more like the margin. He pulls more like the margin, only with a higher vote share. That's kind of equitable to like 16, only he gets a higher vote share. That means that state is dead even. And it's been dead even for a while. And when it comes to Maine, Biden is now in our poll at 25% of the non-college white vote. 25%. That is a royal ass kicking in the 2nd Congressional District. And then areas outside of Bangor and elsewhere are going to be closer than they were in either 16 or 20. There's just no way one state's going to be like, nah. The rest of the country is going to exhibit that trend. We're not. That's just not how it works. It doesn't work that way. And he brings up Virginia. He brings up Virginia, Minnesota, Maine, and New Mexico. We can just end it there, but those are the states he goes through. And Virginia should not be close, he says. That's true. It should not be close. But anyway, I just want to play and give somebody a chance to, I want to give somebody else a real quick spotlight, because I think this is all of a bit of a joke. You have CNN and all these other outlets all of a sudden, and you heard Shannon Bream, they couldn't find anybody to come on and defend him. I mean, don't you find this funny? And by the way, that's CNN. What I was just playing. Don't you find this funny that they're all just jumping down his throat now? None of them gave a damn before about the lie. In fact, they were just days before the debate still publishing stories saying that these are cheap fakes and deep fakes, and Biden is perfectly sound. Joe Scarborough and others said that it's the sharpest they've ever seen Joe Biden. Wow, I can't believe how on top of his game he is, blah, 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 blah. So I think it's worth noting again on the Round and Sunday shows that only one person had the balls to say this, and it's Molly Hemingway. Shocker, shocker, shocker. She's the only one who ever has the chops to bring up stuff on a show about how the media covers stories. The Media Buzz, Howie Kurtz on Fox News, is a show about the media and how they cover these different stories. And yet, it's the only example that you will find of someone criticizing how the media is giving these people a platform now all of a sudden to chase them out, because it never was about Joe. Joe was just being used. It's never about Joe. It's what's best for the state and the Democratic Party, which is currently the vessel of the administrative state. They will abandon their own mother. They would sell out their own mother if that's what it took to advance the interests of the party that they feel is the party of statism, which it is.
Well, that interview, you really didn't see him acting much different than you've seen him act for many months now, many years
And
now.
she's talking about the George Stephanopoulos interview, which was absolutely awful. George Stephanopoulos focused completely, which is how you know, by the way, the sign has got the gloves have come off, the knives have come out, and it's open season on Joe Biden. George Stephanopoulos is, of course, a political hack who used to work for the Clintons, who pretends to be a journalist, an objective journalist. He is not. All right. So now all of a sudden this happens, and, Stephanopoulos spends the entire interview going after Joe Biden and the health issue. And Biden is trying his best to fight it off. But just to give you context, that's what she's talking about. Let's go. And she says, where were you been? Like, he did not, how he acted is not anything different than what we have seen.
Well, that interview, you really didn't see him acting much different than you've seen him act for many months now, many years now. So you can describe it now as halting and low energy, but this is what Americans have been seeing for a long time. And a lot of even Democrat voters have felt this way about Biden, and yet they nominated him to be their candidate. And so this Stephanopoulos interview looks more like a Democrat operative, and he is one, trying to implore a fellow political ally to get out of the race for the good of the Democrat Party. The vast majority of Americans have, with their own eyes and ears, witnessed the decline of this president. Mm-hmm. It was a major talking point in 2020.
Right.
We're talking about a White House press corps that had no problem running wild with accusations and anonymous sources and conspiracy theories when it was a Republican, Donald Trump. But now we're supposed to believe that they were somehow duped, that the rest of the country could see something that they couldn't see. I don't buy it. I don't think any Americans buy it. The level of media corruption that we're seeing is complete at this point. They didn't cover the story because they thought it would be bad for Democrats to talk about the senility of the president. And now they're covering it because they They've lost confidence in their ability to drag Joe Biden across the finish line.
Yes,
There's
sir.
nothing honest about this, and they don't get any points whether they start covering it now or not. I think it's worth noting that all of this desire to oust Biden is happening only among the media and other top Democrats. You are not seeing a groundswell calling for change from Democrat voters. Again, they just had a primary election. They just overwhelmingly chose this man to be their nominee. And now the media are acting like there's basically that doesn't matter. They don't feel confident in Biden. They want to replace him. And you have a media who are claiming that they were lied to because they think it would be better. They're willing to look stupid, and you have to be stupid to have not seen this story coming for 5 years. Or they're saying that they were lied to and they're so bad at their jobs they can't figure out how to deal with liars. And both of those things mean that it's the media who should actually resign before Joe Biden or anyone else. They have shown themselves.
Every single journalist,
I would say,
news organization?
Probably the White House press corps should resign en masse unless they can show that they aggressively targeted this story for the last 5 years. Then they should, yes, absolutely. It's not that people don't think that Joe Biden is old. They do. They have repeatedly said that for years. But the reason why Joe Biden has favorability in the 30s prior to the debate is because of his policies. They don't like inflation.
Right.
They don't like what he's doing with foreign policy. They don't like domestic policy. And you have not heard the media talking about the actual reason why Americans don't like Joe Biden. Instead, they're just doing all this about his health.
Well, but hold on.
Donald Trump.
But the race was started. I want to get to this.
That's not true. That's not true. What he just said is absolutely not true. Everything Molly Hemingway just said is a winner, winner, chicken dinner. She knocked everything out of the park, including, and not limited to, all the way up into the end there when she talked about the fact that this has actually been an issue for Joe Biden before the age factor. And by the way, it's not about his age. Voters think Donald Trump is, older, and they don't want an older president. That's true. And everyone would like to see some new blood, but they think he's capable. They think he's competent. They think his brain is sound. His mind is present. He's still sharp. He's quick as a whip. You saw it in the debate. Age isn't really a factor here. Roosevelt died in office, yet he was leading the nation through the Second Great War, which they also hid that him being confined to a wheelchair because of polio. Media also hid that for the good of the Democratic Party, by the way. However, big sin, much bigger sin here, because the president's mind is gone. And that's dangerous for the country. To hell with what's good for the Democratic Party. And the first time he opens his mouth, and you could see those were clipped, so we can see what Molly said back to back. But the first time that Democrat opens his mouth, he says something that's false. Donald Trump's policies, even when he was president, were super popular. Every time you ask people, do you approve or disapprove of the job Donald Trump is doing as president, you would get a lot of people saying that they disapprove because it was Trump, period, and it was a general statement. When you ask, well, what about Donald Trump on the economy? What about Donald Trump on foreign policy? What about Donald Trump on immigration? What about Donald Trump's infrastructure plan? What about the so-called Muslim ban? What about a physical barrier on the southern border without calling it the Trump wall so you don't taint it? In just the same way people would taint Obamacare's Affordable Care Act. On all those measures, he was positive. His infrastructure plan, his infrastructure policy was one of the most popular policies to this date that we have ever polled. Ever. And you're going to see trust to handle issues when we release our poll. Joe Biden doesn't have an advantage on one single issue of great importance to the voters. Not a single one, folks. I mean, they've been living in a fantasy land and are now using this as an excuse. But Joe Biden was losing to Donald Trump. Joe Biden was unpopular long before the debate.
Radio hosts have confirmed that the Biden campaign gave them questions in advance and they used 4 of them. And even then he stumbled at times. Does that suggest that his own people don't trust the president to do routine interviews?
Again, this is something that the White House has been doing for years.
No.
If you follow non-leftist media, you have known this story for years.
Yes.
You have seen
I don't
the
agree
questions
that
supplied.
it's an outrageous journalistic breach.
So when it was caught on tape,
Howard,
on
are you a
video
liar?
that he was being handled questions and he knew exactly who was going to ask which
Not
question.
Howard.
CNN said this was a mark of him being well prepared. Now they claim that this is some huge scandal when they were covering it for for years, just a few years ago. The only thing that has changed is that the media went from covering this up because they thought it hurt Democrats to now making a big deal about it because they're worried that Joe Biden can't win.
Yep.
Everything can be understood through the prism of, does this help or hurt the Democrat Party? That's the only consistency in our media.
Well,
that is dead ass, 100% true and perfect analysis. End of story. End of story. And anybody else who claims otherwise is a freaking liar. An absolute liar. Man, it's 12:40 already. All right, we'll get Joe Biden's pushback when we come back from our break. We got to take a quick break and do a quick read, and we'll get Joe Biden's reaction. But man, she's right. If you just for a second pay attention to this through that lens, through that prism, is this or is this not good for the Democratic Party, which you have to understand is the vehicle of the administrative state, because they are, of course, state-run media. There is no difference between CNN, MSNBC, NBC, CBS, the New York Times, the Washington Post. There is absolutely no difference between them and what you see if you go to China and what you see if you are, and I'm going to call it a citizen, it's not a citizen, a subject in North Korea. There's no difference. Go to Tehran, listen to the media, no difference. The media is acting at the behest of and to the benefit of the ruling party, which is the vehicle of the administrative state. And if you haven't been consumed by their bullshit since 2020 and before, you would know this about Joe Biden. If you watched Inside the Numbers, the day Joe Biden announced he was running for president and showed up outside of Wilmington, Delaware, you would know this. Because, of course, immediately I saw him and caught him and videoed him doing the geriatric shuffle. That's what I called Geriatric Joe. And it was more than just how he physically moved. He wasn't making sense. He went to podiums. I'm Joe Biden and I'm running for U.S. Senate in South Carolina. What? They covered it up. And the Father Time thing with David Axelrod, man, I guess it's only a problem. Father Time's only a problem when the nootropics stop working. When you can't call Pfizer or Johnson & Johnson anymore and say, hey, what else do you got for him? It's like the tolerance is wearing off or something. Or his tolerance is building up too high. What else you got for him? Then all of a sudden, Father Time matters. Anyone with a brain who's been watching Joe Biden knows Joe Biden has been gone. And they hit him in 2020. They pumped his ass filled with drugs when it mattered, so he could look alert and animated. And now they can't do it anymore. Because, like Molly said, now they're worried it's going to hurt the state party. The party that represents the state. So being dishonest and lying is not the real problem. The real problem is that we got caught, and this is going to hurt us in the elections, so Joe's got to go. And by the way, in order to do that, they're going to tear everything down. They're going to, bribe state officials? What's the plan here? How are you getting around the law you already are having a problem abiding by in a state like Ohio? How are you getting around the fact that nobody can inherit his money except for Kamala? And if you did that, how exactly are you going to reintroduce her to the country? Dude, ballots go out in Michigan and Minnesota like pretty soon. It's July. Minnesota is one of the earliest early voting states. You have 2 months to vote in the state of Michigan, basically. You have 2 months to get that process going. We're halfway there. They'll destroy all those norms and institutions too. For what? You're going to bribe state officials. You're going to threaten and bully superdelegates. What are you going to do? And a big thing here, to the detriment of the voter, who, based on bad information or not, just renominated this man with 85% of the total vote. We're going to go over something in a second when we come back from the break. I mean, good luck. You have Senator Mark Warner running around too, Democrat from Virginia, attempting to recruit people, which of course a lot of these elected people in Congress are superdelegates, attempting to recruit people to bail on Joe Biden. All right, let's take a real quick break. We come back, we'll get Joe Biden's response. All right, listen, folks, just think about this for a second. All this talk we've been hearing and talking about the the bird flu, everything we've been bringing up for weeks and weeks. Just think about that for a second. It's like playing a game of Scrabble or something, and they just slap these two words together. But seriously, real talk, I mean, something is unfolding here. I've seen myself about 15 different headlines. I've shared a lot of them with you recently. Here's one from USA Today. From chickens to foxes, here's how bird flu is spreading across the U.S. And then you have Eric Feigl-Ding, who is an ex-Harvard epidemiologist, is a professor anyway, who posted this tweet. It basically says, listen up. I would start stockpiling these flu medications. I'm not even sure I'm going to pronounce these right, but Zyfluza, Relenza, Tamiflu for your family starting now in all caps. If bird flu is ever human-to-human transmissible, you will regret it when near certain shortages hit. And many epidemiologists, MD friends, all agree and already started. So that's what he was saying. So which is accurate? Getting the meds you need before you need them? This is what Dr. Peter McCullough really means when he says the best treatment is early intervention against disease X. All right, whatever it is, the disease du jour for that day. And luckily, the wellness company has your back. Their contagion emergency kit has been a variety of medications to treat respiratory illnesses, all of which you would need to be in a hospital to get. But the wellness company removes the red tape. All right. In an election year, and we know who the desperate party is, you have to be prepared. And that contagion kit will get you prepared. Laura and I have 2 of them and about to get our 3rd. I think it's probably a good idea. Get the contagion kit, save about $30 with the code TPP. If you go to twc.health/TPP, link is in the description to every video, whether you're watching on Rumble, you're watching on YouTube, you're watching on Locals, you're watching on Getter. If you go to twc.health/TPP and use the code, you'll get $30 off, and you'll also get, by the way, the kit, it's only available in the US. All right. Got to keep remembering to say that. But take a quick intake. It's a quick intake form after you check out, and the kit will arrive in about 2 weeks. Medical board approved, baby. Red tape removed. You can't beat it. Everybody should have these kits. And by the way, they even took my suggestion when I said you got to go with camo, black, or green. Bam! All right. Mine's were baby blue. And that is, I'm like, I guess it only matters what's inside, right? We got the SARS one, the flu one, nebulizer one, and now that's it because they just keep improving the meds. It's awesome. All for the price of a single trip to the doctor. Actually, it's less. It's less because you got to pay for the prescriptions as well when you get out. It's less. Again, twc.health/TPP, twc.health/TPP. And that will bring you right to the People's Pundit page, which is revamped and pretty damn cool, if I do say so myself. It'll give you a lot of good information too. If you go down, check it out. What's the difference, right? You have the first aid, the contagion kit, the travel kit, the medical kit. Man, I mean, it's all great. It really is. What you get is peace of mind, and you should go there and get it right now. All right. We got kids. We ain't playing around. All right. All right. Joe Biden's going to go ahead here. He's going to punch back. He's going to push back. There was a letter that he sent out, and I will read it after this clip. There is a 2-page letter that he sent out to Congress. I would like to go over it and dissect it with you. But first and foremost, let's go
to the appearance he did. I was like, this morning, I was thinking to myself, is he trying to pull the like when Joe Biden first got in office, he wanted to do everything that was anti-Trump, even when it was the wrong move, just for the sake of being anti-Trump. I'm going to not do his plan to exit Afghanistan. I want to be the anti-Trump. I got 13 service members killed and a bunch of Afghanis splattered to the ground to their death, trying to hold on to the last C-130 taken off the strip. But whatevs, at least I'm not doing the Trump plan. I'm going to undo the Keystone Pipeline. I know it's good for I know it's good for the state of Pennsylvania, who I told I wouldn't do it, but I'm not. I'm going to break my promise because I don't want to be Trump, and I'm going to get rid of the Keystone Pipeline, even if gas shoots through the roof. I'm going to do my own CARES bill, even though we don't have the money, and it will cost tons and skyrocket inflation. But hey, whatevs. I don't want to be the Trump, so I'm going to go ahead and do something different than the Trump. And now all of a sudden, he's like acting like he's Trump light. America first for manufacturing. You got to read this letter. We'll get there. And he's even starting to go on like the morning shows, only he's getting up like 2 hours later than Donald Trump used to get up to go on these morning shows. That light went on in the residency of the White House at 4 a.m., folks, every day. By 5:15, 5:30, Trump's on the phone with the guys on Fox and Friends and the curvy couch talking about what's planned for the day and what's been going on. Joe Biden now tries to take a page out of that playbook as well, and here's what we get. And you know what? We'll play the clip. I'll wind up probably interjecting because that's me. I cannot sit and listen to BS. But let's do it, and let's play.
The American public is not going to move away from me as the average voter. And again, I'm here for two reasons, pal. One, to rebuild the economy for hardworking middle-class people, give everybody a shot. Just a straight shot. Everybody gets a fair chance. No.
He just got his shot. It's smart to actually do these appearances in the morning. Rest, wake up, got a couple of hours before you really go downhill. Take the jab in your left ass or right ass cheek. Get on the phone with Morning Joe. Not exactly adversarial. And give them your best performance that you can give them before your mind starts to fade away by 9 a.m. Right? It's kind of smart. That would be the right, most opportune time to go, to do it, to put on this performance. Real quick, couple things they already gave away. I mean, unfortunately for him, the American people already gave up on him. The Democratic primary voter, however, has not. And that is ultimately the problem. All of these, and now all of a sudden he cares about party elites. It's actually kind of remarkable, but that's who he's talking about. All of these, I'm so sick of these elites, he says. I'm sick of these elites. It's just hilarious. You got to be kidding me. But anyway, that's the path he's going down. And the problem is, aside from the Democratic primary voter, what he said is just not true. They've already given up on him. They have already. All right, let's keep going.
Number one. Number two, remember all this talk about how I don't have the black support? Come on, give me a break. Come with me. Watch. I'm getting so frustrated by the elites. Now, I'm not talking about you guys, but about the elites in the party who they know so much more. If any of these guys don't think I should run against me, go ahead, announce the president. Challenge me at the convention.
All right, there's a major problem with the tough guy attitude. Run against me. I'm getting so sick and tired of the elites. Joe, I don't know if you were conscious for this, but the primary happened. They did try to run against you. Dean Phillips tried to mount a challenge. Marianne Williamson's a bit of a joke, but guess what? She pulled some votes. And then there was this other guy out there called Robert F. Kennedy who was polling in double digits, and in some polls, 1/5 of the vote for a while there. And as I said on Twitter, you didn't allow them to run against you. So you're taking the tough guy attitude now, but it reminds me of somebody who's like hitting the bag in the gym and whipping on this bag and claiming you're a good fighter when the bag can't hit back. You're only a good fighter when you actually step into the ring with someone and they compete and throw everything they got at you, and then you prevail. That's when you can claim you're a good fighter. You blocked everybody from competing. Your White House threatened everyone. They booted him off the ballot in huge important states like Florida and North Carolina. You stripped the delegates from the traditional, long-standing traditional state, the first in the nation primary state. You stripped their delegates because they wouldn't listen to you. You cast the first in the nation primary aside like their voters don't mean shit. And now, by the way, St. Anselm College has you trailing by too. I couldn't give a better analogy, I'm telling you. It's like somebody beating on a punching bag and then being like, yeah, whoop that bag's ass, yo. Okay, tough guy. The bag doesn't hit back. Get in the ring with somebody who hits back. Then let's see how tough you are. In fact, you didn't win 2020 either, bro. Barack Obama won 2020 for you. Let's cut the shit. Did you call Pete Buttigieg and threaten Pete Buttigieg to get out of the race and then ultimately bribe him for a cabinet post, or was that Barack Obama? Who called Amy Klobuchar and told her to get out of the race before her own state so Bernie Sanders didn't carry it? Who did that? That wasn't you. That was Barack Obama. Who called every media outlet, including the one that you are on right now talking to, and told them all to tell the Democratic primary voter and the American public that Bernie Sanders cannot win? So even though you want Bernie Sanders, you have to vote for Joe Biden if you want to beat Donald Trump. It wasn't you. It was Barack Obama. David Axelrod, hilarious. I was happy to have him there. Team Obama, of which Axelrod is very much a part of, thinks Joe Biden is an idiot. The Obamas think Joe Biden is an idiot long before he ever had dementia. The Clintons think Joe Biden is an idiot. This is the truth. It's not even a secret. It's just one they just don't bother telling you about. Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama almost tore each other's eyes out for the Democratic nomination in 2008, and yet they like each other a lot more than they like Joe Biden, who they think is an idiot. There was an intellectual kinship with them that they could not share with a guy who was a serial plagiarist, who graduated at the bottom of his class, not exactly at an upscale Ivy League institution. Come on, man. Come on, man. So now he's like, oh, that can't be me. I'm such a tough guy. Let's play another one. Let's remove this. Play one more here. I have long now equated this race, the polling in this race, the trend, and let's see if I can show you the trend before we pull. I believe I can. Before we pull the, where is the national polling here? Because it just looks, the trend just looks awful for Joe Biden. Here it is. Okay. I have long equated this race, what I thought to be a weirdness in reverse, like Bush v. Kerry. And there's now like a break from that. And I want to bring that up and talk about that and why that is, but why I still do see this. And it's strange because obviously Bush was the incumbent, but Bush had a lead for like the entire year. And then come the summer, Kerry was able to make some kind of a comeback. The problem is throughout the spring, Bush had already defined him as an out-of-touch coastal liberal from New England. So once the money was like spent and the swift boating kicked in, he would, Kerry would lose that competitive lead. And Bush was remarkably consistent, with the exception of a few periods, a few weeks in the summer. It was remarkably consistent. Bush's lead was. All right. So now we have 2024. Here is the graph and here is the trend. Until yesterday, with the dump of one poll, which is, I I hate to say it. I mean, it's like an outlier. If you look at where Joe Biden is, 40%, 42%, CBS News having him at 48% is without a doubt an outlier. And I don't know how we would get him. I mean, with leaners, and I believe CBS News does lean, you can see them. It's like an opening. Think of Jaws. Think of the old shark analogy. Like the trend looked like Jaws opening his mouth and getting ready to swallow up a little seal, a little unsuspecting B-rated character in the movie. You know what I'm saying? And then the CBS News poll was put into the average, which popped Joe Biden up. But for the most part, we now have Trump all the way up to 48% almost, 47.5%. Trump tends or has in the past, and it doesn't mean he will again, but he has overperformed his national polling by about an average of 2.7 points. Let's call it 3. And that would put him above 50%, even if Joe Biden was to gobble up everybody else. Most of the polls before the CBS News poll had Biden now down in the low 40s. That's where probably will have him as well. He is getting crushed. And Trump in the high 40s. With leaners, definitely above 50. So just keep that in mind. This is now a change. Otherwise, if you were to have looked back from, let's say, the new year, and of course, this is what, October of 23. But if you were to look at, let's go forward a little bit to that's still October. Wow, we took the lead even before then. But if you were to look at like the new year on, and then you would compare this to Bush v. Gore, it looked very similar. But I'm looking at this show, the clip from the show, and there was another way to look at this, and I thought it was interesting. So I grabbed the clip, and I thought we'd share it here. So let's listen to this here.
Point out where the polls are now, where they were.
Oh, how could I do this before I say during the interview with George Stephanopoulos, which we're going to play a little bit of a clip of. During the interview with George Stephanopoulos, Biden claimed that he was always underestimated and behind in the polls. That is absolutely not true. Biden was never behind in the polls. Biden was ahead of Donald Trump and actually was overstated in the polling. Maybe in some of the primaries, which they do bring up here, but the claim that he's been understated before and he went on to go win is false. Absolutely false. And by the way, they're pushing this new Reuters. It's just trash. I mean, some of these polls are just hot trash. But in any event, the aggregates, why we look at aggregates. But I was trying to find it. Where did I not take that clip? I guess I didn't. The bottom line is that's what he said. George, I've been underestimated before. And that's not true. But let's play the clip. Here's Harry Enden on CNN going through that claim, but then also some other important findings about where he is and where this race stands.
This point back in 2020 and Joe Biden's worst position in the polls back in 2020. Right now, Donald Trump leads in an aggregate of national polls by about 3 percentage points. If you go back 4 years ago at this point, Joe Biden was ahead by 9 points. This right now don't look anything like what we saw 4 years ago at this point. I then decided to take it a step further. What was Biden's worst 2020 polling position? He was ahead by 4 points, which basically matched what he ended up beating Donald Trump by in the national popular vote. So this 3-point advantage for Donald Trump is Donald Trump's best position versus Joe Biden, whether you include the polls this year or you include the polls last cycle. The idea that the polls underestimated Joe Biden last time around, simply put, does not hold any water, Mr. Berman.
Not in the general election, certainly. What about in terms of being underestimated in the Trump era in general?
Yeah. So I decided to expand upon our search. Who outperformed their July national polls? This is major elections during the Trump era. We can start in the midterms, right? Take a look here. This is a 2022 midterm. Wow. This is a generic congressional ballot. In fact, Republicans were underestimated by a point. They outperformed their July polls and the actual result by a percentage point. You go back to 2018, Democrats did outperform their polls, but just by a point. Basically, the polls were right on at this particular point in the midterm elections. We talk about the presidential race. Last time around, Donald Trump actually did better in the results than his July polls by 5 points. You go back to 2016, you see something very similar. That is, the July polls actually underestimated Donald Trump. He outperformed his July polls. So the idea in the Trump era that the polls have underestimated Democrats, whether it be in a Joe Biden matchup, whether it be a matchup against Hillary Clinton, whether it be in the midterms, at least in the national polling that right now shows Donald Trump in his strongest position, simply put, is not true. If anything, the polls have underestimated Republicans during the Trump era, especially in the presidential races in 2016 and in 2020.
All right, so real quick before he gets forward here, if past his prologue, all right, so again, like I said, it's about 2.7%. So where does that put Trump? It puts him right about where we have him when we lean voters in the head-to-head. With it does matter the difference he's making, the comparison he's drawing between midterms and presidential elections. Polling them are two totally different animals. All right, midterms, much more higher interest voters and even more educated. So you are going to get sometimes, especially with the realignment and the way Democrats are attracting more educated voters, even though that's slipping, their grasp on white educated voters has slipped some. But it's understandable. It makes sense as to why maybe in some states in 22 Democrats were understated. Their support was understated. But in presidential cycles, when you have a lot more low propensity voters come out, a larger population size, it's a totally different animal. And the groups that are being underrepresented in those polls and have been for years now, from multiple cycles, are Republican constituencies, which is even more, it's exacerbated even more when you're talking about Donald Trump because of who his support comes from. All right. So with that in mind, I just wanted to say that before we continue, but that's an important point to make. All right. So even if they're trying to point to midterms, it's not as comparable. And you can even see it there. It's not as comparable. So there we go.
That front, I mean, how unusual is it for a Republican to be ahead by this much right now?
Yeah. So let's go all the way back. Who led in early July polls? Well, right now, Donald Trump is ahead. Go back in 2020, a Democrat, Biden. 2016, Hillary Clinton, a Democrat. 2008, 2012, a Democrat. Even in 2004, where George W. Bush ended up winning, John Kerry was actually ahead in the polls at this point. You have to go all the way back to 2000, to George W. Bush being ahead in the early July polls. You have to go all the way back to the end of the 20th century, beginning of the 21st century, to find a Republican ahead at this point. 24 years. And
I just want to say, you also, Dukakis was way ahead of George Herbert Walker Bush in 88. But again, I'm not sure that's a comparable situation. The polling industry's challenges with certain voters that are definitely Trump constituencies is really a more modern phenomena. You could even see it start to show up in like the exit polls in 2000 were bad. The exit polls in 04 were awful, right? Obama won so overwhelmingly in 08. It almost didn't really matter. In 12, they weren't terrible in 12. The bottom line is the polls were right, but for the wrong reasons. There were some issues there. And then we all know the story in 16. The exit polls showed Donald Trump losing states like North Carolina and Florida in 2016. Ohio was close. So the exit polls were awful. And then you saw people like or organizations like the Associated Press and others like Fox News follow them, break off from those exit polls. But even pre-election polls, Kerry had I just want to point this out again. Yeah, Kerry was ahead at this point, but he was not ahead before that, and he doesn't hold a lead for very long. It will go back and forth a little bit when you're talking about some polls. The Zogby poll was very different than the CNN poll, which was more favorable to Kerry. The fact is, though, it was a very temporary time. So it's almost like not a good example when we're looking at 04 with the rest of these examples. Although the point he's making is right. I mean, the fact is, Kerry was at this point, he was ahead. So I guess I get that. But it's the only, you have him and you have Clinton. I would argue Clinton was actually not ahead. I would, because we had our own polls, which I guess don't meet CNN's standards for publication.
Our polling in 2016 in July, they did trade leads, but it was a closer race than people thought it was. What I'm saying is it always was. Jim Comey coming out to the microphone saying, that she violated law and had classified information on an like an illegal server and was sending mail she shouldn't have sent. That just reaffirmed people's positions already. The WikiLeaks dump, I'm sure had, they did. They showed those, it's interesting because what was that race about, right? And they showed those huge fees for speeches to like Wall Street fat cats and banks. So, but again, that's like reaffirming what people thought of the Clintons, whereas our polling had just come out. We polled up to the 4th of July, skipped the 4th of July, polled the 5th of July, then released the results. So, right around this time period. And it was, in our polling, always a closer race, much like the LA Times poll, by the way, which was more bullish on Trump than we were. But it definitely showed a closer race. So I would actually argue there are two examples there that aren't great examples. One is the Kerry example, because Kerry was not ahead for the entire year, pulled ahead for a brief period of time at this point, and then would go on to lose it within a month. And while there were some polls that traded back and forth, Bush had a lead. So it wasn't a big lead, and Trump's lead right now is actually twice the size of Bush's lead over John Kerry after Kerry loses that polling advantage again. There's a period where he'll get a huge bump. He's ahead by like 7 or 9 or something like that. It's big. But it's temporary. And it showed a consistency for Bush that reminds me of this election cycle. It's just Trump's lead is consistently bigger on average than what Bush's was. And then again, the Clinton example. So I just don't buy. 08 with Obama, geez, man. Does that even matter? He was so far ahead. The financial crisis, the war being unpopular was just so far ahead. All right, let's go back to it. Let him finish the clip. Damn, I got to take another commercial break already.
This particular point, the idea that a Democrat is ahead, there are voters in the electorate who are dealing with a poll position they have never seen before, and that is a Republican leading in the national popular vote, at least according to the polls.
A very unusual situation. One thing I just will point out, Biden may be talking about the primaries in 2020, where he did not do well in Iowa and New Hampshire.
Bro. Come on, bro. Cut the crap, dude. Why does their instinct immediately to cover? They can't help it. Even when, as Molly stated, they're throwing him under the bus because they fear he's now a liability for the Democratic Party. They still can't get over the instinct to cover for him. Am I right? Do you understand what I'm saying? No, he's not talking about the primaries. It is now, that interview with George Stephanopoulos is now no less than the third time in as many weeks that I heard him make that remark. Live at the church, he made it. And at his so-called post-debate rally, he made that comment. I've been down him in the polls before, and I ended up winning. Don't count me out. Just like he goes on and on about, I don't care about that poll. The New York Times poll has me up by 10. Sir, I'm asking you about the New York Times poll. You're down by 6. Well, that's just a bullshit poll then. The guy just, man, come on. Enough with the covering for him. Enough already. But it's their instinct. They can't help it.
Hampshire, and then he ended up with the nomination. But that's a different animal. That is a vastly different animal than any kind of a general election setting.
Correct. In fact, if you were to look back at the 2020 national Democratic primary polls, they mostly had Biden ahead, except for that little small portion, right, when he lost Iowa and then lost to New Hampshire and then lost to Nevada. But overall, those primary polls had him ahead, and then he won. And certainly when it came to the general election, the polls always had Joe Biden ahead. There wasn't a single poll that met CNN standards for publication that ever had Donald Trump ahead in 2020. And now you have a slew of them. And the average, of course, definitely has Donald Trump ahead.
History.
All right, so there it is. And I was going to bring up, let's take Iowa, for instance. The final Seltzer poll for CNN, they're talking about standards. They're unbelievable. They spiked a poll unnecessarily because Joe Biden wasn't doing well in the poll. So this is the truth. Emerson, Monmouth, they all had Joe Biden winning the Iowa caucuses. Go look it up. He did way worse in New Hampshire than his poll suggested he was going to. He did way worse in the Nevada caucuses than his polling suggested he was going to. He's not talking about the primaries. He's just blowing hot smoke out of his ass like Joe Biden does all the time. All right, we're going to take a real quick break. When we come back, there'll be more Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. Don't forget, if you like the videos, don't forget to smash the like button and share them far and wide. If you're on Rumble, it would be great if you would take, or if you're on YouTube, it would be great if you would take a minute, go over to Rumble, subscribe there, like the video there. It's less than a minute of your time, and it has an enormous impact on the sponsors of the show and helps us greatly. Algorithms and everything. And the same vice versa, by the way, if you're on Rumble. Of course, the best place to follow what we're doing is right there, right below. Can you see it? Can you see it? peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. All right, we'll be back in like 2 minutes with a read from our sponsors, and we will just take a look around the map and see what's what here. Sound like a plan? Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. All right, we're back. Inside the Numbers, 1:15. It's Monday. Man. Getting through it, rocking through it. All right, like I said, don't forget to like the video if you like it, share it far and wide. We're just going over Harry Anton saying that what a complete load of BS, as if the guy was ever the underdog trailing in the polls. What a load of shit. All right, let's have a word from our friends at Freedom Gold. It's a volatile time, folks. It's a volatile time, you know? I mean, could you imagine this? Let me paint a picture for you. What if he is understated in the polls and he goes on to win re-election? What the hell do you think's going to happen in the economy then? Democrats, be honest. Or actually, I should say, be honest what's going to happen to your fellow Americans, since you're largely doing okay. If you're still voting Democrat, it means you are, a government worker, a professional class person, something like that. So maybe you won't know, but understand the markets will be volatile. And we all know how negatively, the value of currency is on value of the dollar is on currency. It's an inverse relationship. Anyway, that's what I want to talk to you about, Freedom Gold USA. If you've ever thought about investing in gold or silver, or you're just interested in diversifying your investment portfolio, Freedom Gold USA is definitely the company you should check out. And thank Brian for coming on, giving you guys a face to the name. What I like about them is not only, you could see from how an open book Brian was when he was on, but they really are all about helping you make smart investment choices in precious metals. They believe the more you know, the better. So you can get, free investment guides, consultations, and give you the information that you need to make confident decisions without a pressure, without hard sell. Also, they will guarantee competitive pricing on some of the best quality and purity gold and silver you will find. If you are a watcher of the show and you take advantage of this deal, they have lowered their entry requirement for making an investment, which is way beyond what you will see from other houses. Yeah, sure, you want to open an account, 50 grand, 20 grand, whatever. Even their own is around 5. But for you guys and the viewers and listeners, they have lowered that all the way down to just $500. That is incredible, and you will not see it anywhere. And the kicker is they still will offer free shipping and insurance on all orders. Then throw you in a raffle, and you could get free precious metals just from being a listener. Only my listeners will be in that raffle. All right. Plus, again, even outside of that, depending on what you do, you may get some free gold and silver just on qualifying purchases. And they give you a $500 credit just for opening a gold or silver IRA. That's a hell of a nice bonus. And here's the best part. Again, dealing with Freedom Gold USA is simple and it is hassle-free. You will not get any pushy sales tactics. They just want to help you reach the goals, your financial goals, in a way that works for you. So if you want to learn more, go to freedomgold.usa.com/rich. It's on the screen right now, just for us, just for our listeners and viewers. Or you can give them a call at 888-279-3592. 888-279-3592. That number is just for us, but it couldn't hurt to tell them that People's Pundit sent you. Again, the website too, freedomgoldusa.com/rich. Go there, find out about the latest special offers, and see what kind of deals you may qualify for. That's just a few that I rattled off just a second ago. And give you the number one more time as well, 888-279-3592. Don't wait. Give them a call. Tell them the People's Pundit sent you. Secure your financial future today. Looking for protection in a volatile market. Looking for protection in a volatile world, right? Indeed it is. All right. Let's just take a look at the polls. Pop up the screen share. Boom. This is national. We'll take a little brief round from the states as well. Okay. New York Times, Siena poll. This is the head-to-head. This is the five-way. We're going to be looking at the head-to-head as well. I just don't know. Look, we're doing it. We're polling the five-way. We got Oliver on there now for the Libertarian Party. Jill Stein, who will probably be on more states than any of these other jokers. I'm serious. At this rate, she will be. We have RFK as well. We're just not sure exactly what states he ends up on the ballot in. So this is at this point still in July, which won't be for long. By August, we will know. We will have a much better idea. But at this point, it still is largely an exercise in polling. It's like a polling exercise just to see what it would be. But we're not going to get that national picture like that. Even still, I mean, where Trump is hovering just below 50, while Biden's having a difficult time even cracking the mid-40s. And he's not at this point. He hasn't in a single poll outside of the CBS News poll in weeks. Oh, wait, Harvard-Harris did too. But that's because they're leaning him. And I got to tell you, even in our polling, he does win the leaners. It's just not enough to keep Trump below 50, excuse me. Trump cracks to 50, and obviously that's significant. But in the aggregate, Biden is down below the mid-40s. It's not good for an incumbent president. Not good at all. In this day in history, Biden was up by nearly 9 points. 8.8. This day in history, Hillary Clinton was up by 4.7. All right. So, Enton made a good point. I mean, in many of these elections, in many of them, the polls at this point were really spot on. They were. All right. Let's go to Real Clear Polling. Look at the headline here for both the head-to-heads. Where's the head-to-head? That's Biden versus West. Trying to just get the head-to-head here, but is this the regular? Nope, that is the five-way. What on earth is going on? You get something for me? Did you get something for me? Oh, man, I don't know how to stop this. Can you kill this, Laura, so it's not so loud? Man, let me get the volume. Hold on, folks. Man, that's annoying. I don't even know where the hell that is. Anyway, it is what it is. They changed it around so much. There we go. They changed it around so much that it's hard to even see what's what. Those are the five-way national polls. I think they screwed something up here, to be honest with you. Oh, wait, you can click on the five-way. So I was right. Oh, my God. It's even worse for Biden than I thought. Oh my God. They did change it, but oh my God. This is the 5-way. Oh Lord. And honestly, we're calling it a 5-way, but it really should be a 6. Cornel West, right? I mean, I don't think he's going to get on many of the honestly, I don't. He doesn't have any infrastructure. He's got no experience for this stuff. We'll have to see how it goes, but I'm not sure he's going to be much of a factor anywhere, folks. I got to say, I really don't. I just don't see it. We'll see what Kennedy does, but I think, again, we may all be looking back and we all may say to ourselves, Jill Stein had more of an impact than any of these jokers did. And if West is on the ballot, you better both Chase Oliver and Joe Biden better hope he isn't. Chase Oliver's just, in my opinion, just humiliated by these poll numbers. He's the worst libertarian candidate that we have seen in years, even though Joe Jorgensen was dealing with an environment that wasn't as keen on a third party as the environment is now. In other words, it's easier to be a libertarian in 2024 than it is in 2016. That's just the truth of it. There was more of an appetite now. There is more of an appetite now than there was 4 years ago. Man, that says a lot. Oliver, I just don't know where he's coming from. I don't see the appeal for young people. I really don't see it for anybody. And as of right now, Real Clear Politics isn't even putting him on here. Yeah, that's unbelievable. Anyway, you can see Stein is actually doing better than West in our polling, especially when we lean. She's doing better than Oliver. So combined, when you're looking at their combined vote share between West and Stein, certainly left leaning, you're getting around 4%, rounded, of course, to the nearest whole number. Kennedy is at 10, but it looks and appears that he is dropping considerably. The Forbes Harris X poll and the CNN poll had him higher than most. We're going to have him, he is at double digits when leaned, but in the initial, who are you going to vote for? He's only at like 8-9%, depending on the scenario that you ask, because, of course, we're asking multiple scenarios. All right, so, looking at the trend here, outside, and unlike the 2-way, these, and this is why I've always said that I think that they're misleading, because it looks like Trump, he's always been ahead. It looks like he has a better advantage when you add these candidates. That wasn't always clear to me. It really was not always clear to me, because Kennedy could have hurt Trump more in states like Minnesota. He could have hurt Trump more in states like, Michigan and Pennsylvania. In Minnesota, he did, in our polling at least, always hurt Biden more. But you'd rather carry Michigan and Pennsylvania, or you'd rather carry them than Minnesota because of the electoral vote situation. Speaking of which, let's look at the electoral vote situation. How do we get no toss-up map? There we go. Here it is. How long has this map been this number? How consistent has this map been? Trump 312, Biden 226. And here's the kicker. As it stands right now, let's entertain what David Axelrod was talking about. Shall we? Oh my God. Oh, wait. Oh my God. Oh my God. This is David Axelrod's worst fear right here. This is what he's been worried about. Because at this point, it's not the People's Pundit saying it. This is David Axelrod and other Democrats. Oh, I forgot the damn. Yeah. Oh, wait. There's one more I meant to show you guys, and we're going to bring it up. But we'll come back to the map in a second. But, oh my God, how could I have forgotten this guy? How could I have forgotten him? He's actually a nice guy, too, in real life. I'm just being honest. He's a nice guy in real life. You're going to see. I know your people out in the, in the audience are going to be like, no, this guy's a prick. In real life, he's really not a prick. In real life, he's a pretty cool dude. I don't know about his personal life. I don't even know about his professional life. I don't know how it is working with the guy. I'm just telling you, bumping into him at a convention, seemed like a pretty decent dude. But obviously, he thinks this map is closer to a reality than you might think. Because you don't talk like this about a sitting president unless you think you're going to be wiped out. All right, let's pull it up. Is Van Jones having a meltdown on CNN? State of the Union.
He's doing what he's racing. Look, I mean, he's still in the race, and he's doing what he's supposed to do. I'm glad to see him out there. I'm glad he's doing interviews. I'm glad he's doing all those things. The challenge is that the numbers are not encouraging, and the party is no longer united. You already have 4 House Democrats who are saying step down.
I'm not sure that's true, though. I'm not sure that's really true. I mean, when he says the party, I got to give it to Biden here that Biden is actually talking about something that is real and not imagined in his failing mind. There is, how could I put it? There is a split between the donors and the voters, because as of right now, it is falling, but the number of Democrats that say Joe Biden should stick in the race is a majority. And when we get to the letter here, you're going to see what I'm talking about. But let's go.
You're going to have more. You're going to have more this week. Unfortunately, you're going to have the split screen of the president having, NATO allies here and people in his own party looking at this math. As David Axelrod said, this time 4 years ago, Biden was up 10. He's down 6. We needed that debate to turn things around. It did turn things around in a negative direction. And so I think that he's going to have to look in his heart. Ouch. This is a party that loves him. I've never heard so many people say about a politician, I love this man. Not just I respect him, not just I admire him. I love Joe Biden. He is beloved in this party, and yet he may not be able to get us across the finish line. And I think people are hoping that he will recognize we're running Kamala Harris for president right now.
Oh, burn. We're running Kamala right now. Let me just say something real quick. Let's just back up for a second here and clarify something. Did I hear him say that he has never, ever seen anybody love a president like this, like a president this beloved by the party? Like, hello, your boss, bro? Like Barack Obama wasn't as loved by the party as Joe Biden? Did I misunderstand him? That is what he was saying. This is crazy. Of course, Barack Obama is more popular than Joe Biden was with the Democratic Party. Are you kidding me? The Democratic voter. Which one's more popular, Barack Obama or Joe Biden? Who do you like more? Get out of here, man. Come on, Van. Be better than that. Unless I'm misunderstanding or he misspoke or something, but that's insane to me. I've never seen anybody loved like this before. What? Please, sucker.
That's who we're running. Nobody believes Joe Biden's going to be president in 4 years. And so we're in the worst possible world because she can't defend herself. She has to defend him. We can't defend her. We have to defend him. If we're basically running Kamala Harris anyway, let's run Kamala Harris and let her get out there and defend herself and accept that's where we are. The reality is we are running Kamala Harris for president one way or the other. I'd rather run her for president in the strongest way rather than the weakest way.
All right. And there's going to be a response to that from Team Biden, which is finally where we're going. He's brought up, Van Jones, of course, brought up in that interview, the letter that is circulating by Mark Warner and others. There are so far 4 people who are signed on to that. That is not a lot, especially when you are trying to topple the president of the United States. So to pretend like this is some huge movement and groundswell is bullshit. Let's get real. Okay. There's a groundswell in the halls of the donor class and on K Street, and is saying nobody believes Joe Biden will be president in 4 years. Right. Because Joe Biden's going to lose to Donald Trump. Now, that being said, Why the hell on what in hell makes you think that it's going to be any different with Kamala? And of course, I don't know the motivation behind why he's going with Kamala, and there have been so many other people advocating for other people. The money is probably a big factor in this. The donors are calling Van Jones too. The donors are calling David Axelrod. They're saying, we got to replace this guy. And without a doubt, somebody as smart as David Axelrod is telling them, you cannot move that money that you all already gave Joe Biden. That is not feasible or legal. The only one who can do it is Harris. It's Kamala. That's it. And I got to tell you, if you think Heels Up Harris is going to be a stronger candidate than Scranton Joe Biden, you've been in Washington, D.C. way too long. And I had a ton of people DM me, see the clip, what's it called? Mediaite clipped it, I think it was, or whatever. So did Red Voice. And they're like, oh my God, he goes all the way here. He called her Heels Up Harris on Sean Parnell's podcast. I'm going to call her a lot more names. And guess who else is going to do it? Donald Trump. The country's going to know she banged an old fat man to get to the top who's married. And apparently also the former president, by the way. But that's another story. Give me a break. And Biden says, no dice. Not happening. I know it's small. I will read it to you. And let me see actually if I can zoom in. Oh, looks like we got a statement from John Tester. Oh, it looks bad. Tell Biden to go F himself, isn't it? Oh my God. Let's get this letter first. But then let's see if we can't get the Tester statement up. Oh my Lord. Hold on, guys. Let me just read Tester's statement real fast, okay? Bear with me. Oh my God. Oh my God, Laura. So bad. Oh my God. I mean, it's not like horrible, like blatantly horrible, but it is a put up or shut up. Like it's a convince them or get out of the way statement. It is. I'll read it to you guys in a second. Let's first go over, and my God, how many times do I got to turn this off? Jeez. Let's first go over what Joe Biden said, Oh, that's nice. Hope you will die in a high-speed car crash. That's an email I just read. That's awesome. This is what you get for being the People's Pundit every day, folks. That's so nice. Anyway, moving on. Fellow Democrats, now that you have returned from the July 4th recess, I want you to know that despite all the speculation in the press and elsewhere, I am firmly committed to staying in this race, to running this to the end and to beating Donald Trump. I have had extensive conversations with the leadership of the party, elected officials, rank and file members, and most importantly, Democratic voters over these past 10 days or so. I have heard the concerns that people have, their good faith fears and worries about what is at stake in this election. I am not blind to them. Believe me, I know better than anyone the responsibility and the burden the nominee of our party carries. I carried it in 2020 when the fate of our nation was at stake. I also know these concerns from a place of real respect for my lifetime of public service and my record as president. From my lifetime of public service. From my lifetime of using the office that I held to enrich my family, get blackmailed, launder money, engage in extortion, take bribes. Those fucking people. Shower with my daughter who's 16. Give my daughter to dirty ass old men to make sure my political friends are happy. This family. Could you imagine if this was a Republican family? Could you imagine if Don Jr. had a out-of-wedlock child that Donald Trump refused to acknowledge. Could you imagine if Ivanka Trump's diary showed up and said what about Donald Trump, what Joe Biden's daughter said about him? Could you imagine if, and I'm not going to say this, but God forbid something were to happen to one of them. Anyway, Don Jr. like banged Eric's wife. Could you imagine the headlines? Let's play the imagine if game here. I hope you die in a high-speed car crash. That's nice. That shit's going to be in your life review, homie. Understand that. The Lord's going to show that email to you in your life review. I wish you all the blessings in the world. And I don't even know what else to say. God be with you. Peace be with you. Peace be with you, brother. Peace be with you. Anyway, I also know these concerns come from a place of real respect for my lifetime of public service and my record as president, and I have been moved by the expressions of affection for me from so many who have known me well and supported me over the course of my public life. I've been grateful for the rock-solid, steadfast support from so many elected Democrats in Congress and all across the country, and taken great strength from the resolve and determination I've seen from so many voters and grassroots supporters, even in the hardest of weeks. I can respond to all this by saying clearly and unequivocally, I wouldn't be running again if I did not absolutely believe I was the best person to beat Donald Trump in 2024. Translation, I would not be running. And translation actually is this. There is no way I'm going to let you run when the future of my family is at stake and my son, myself, and my brother could all be thrown in federal prison for taking bribes and being bought off by the Chinese. There is no chance in hell that I'm giving anyone else the opportunity to pardon me when I could just do this myself. And frankly, I think I'm the best candidate to do it anyway, so up yours. That's what that translates to. I have a staff, I have a team, I have friends, I have family who all need to be protected by the long arm of the law, from the long arm of the law, excuse me. And I'm not, I repeat, I am not going to give all of that and put all of that in the hands of Kamala Harris. Sorry, Kamala, not going to happen. You will lose. So if I'm going to lose, I'm going to lose my way. We had a Democratic nomination process, and the voters have spoken clearly and decisively. I received over 14 million votes, 87% of the votes cast across the entire nominating process. I have nearly 3,900 delegates, making me the presumptive nominee of our party by a wide margin. This was a process open to anyone who wanted to run. Oh my God. Only 3 people chose to challenge me. One fared so badly that he left the primaries to run as an independent. Joe, you blocked him from the ballot, Joe. You didn't even give him Secret Service when both his father and his uncle have been assassinated. Whatever you think of Robert Kennedy, don't you dare pretend like he was treated fairly. His own family excommunicated him. That poor bastard isn't even invited to Christmas at Camelot next year. Are you kidding me? Open to anyone who wanted to run my you know what. Another attacked me for being too old and was soundly defeated. He's talking about Dean Phillips. Again, how many voters in New Hampshire would have voted for Dean Phillips if the process wasn't ripped off? In fact, then they move and partner with Nikki Haley to get all of those non-Biden, disaffected Democratic voters not to vote for Dean Phillips, but instead to vote for Nikki Haley to make Trump look bad and Biden look good. Because you have to understand there were 2 goals with that. Not just to embarrass Donald Trump and drag on the process, screw up the data, screw up the voter records, tarnish the voter records for multiple cycles to come. It was more than that. It was also to make Biden look better and stronger than he was. And it worked. The voters of the Democratic Party have voted. They have chosen me to be the nominee of the party. Do we now just say this process didn't matter? That the voters don't have a say? I decline to do that. I feel a deep obligation to the faith and the trust the voters of the Democratic Party have placed in me to run this year. It was their decision to make, not the press, not the pundits, not the big donors, not any selected group of individuals, no matter how well intentioned. The voters and the voters alone decide the nominee of the Democratic Party. But that's bullshit. That's bullshit. Let me ask you guys a question. And Democrats out there, ask yourselves this. Did you make an informed decision? Now, I'm not advocating you should overturn the entire process. I'm not. The votes are cast and counted. But the point is, did you make an informed decision? The press, everyone he just cited right there who was on his side a month ago, forget a month, 11 days ago, everyone he just cited lied to you. They hid everything from you. They told you that all of those allegations about Joe Biden's fitness, mental fitness, was nothing but cheap fakes and Republican propaganda. Did you get to make an informed decision? I mean, I don't know how in the world you could say yes. You did not. You got bamboozled, hoodwinked, as Malcolm X used to say. You out? You out, Laura? You peacing out? You leaving? I thought you just said I'm leaving, baby. Got played. Thank you. You got totally played. I have no doubt that I and we can and will beat Donald Trump. We have a historic record of success to run on. Oh, this guy is more delusional than I thought. And it's not even him. Can we cut the shit? I bet you Joe Biden actually wrote this up. I don't think this was even his advisors. I bet you Joe Biden worked with the advisors to make sure that this statement read as it does. That's what I think. In fact, I've been told flat out that Joe Biden does run a lot of day-to-day shit. She's the first lady. What the hell is she doing that for? Who do these advisors belong? Whose advisors are they? Joe Biden's advisors or Jill Biden's advisors? Because this reads like a woman's statement. Am I wrong? I'm not trying to insult anybody. This reads like an old white woman's statement. I'm right. I know I am. In my bones, I can tell you his wife wrote this statement up with his advisors. From creating over 15 million jobs. You didn't create 15 million jobs. Including 200 just last month. That's a lie. That'll be revised down. Reaching historic lows on unemployment because of dropped labor force participation and employment population ratios. To revitalizing American manufacturing with 800,000 jobs. That's hilarious. Whatever was recovered was recovered. As of last month, which you just cited, not a single manufacturing job was created last month. Not one. Ditto mining, ditto construction. Of those 200,000 shit jobs that he just cited, on net, jobs created went to foreign-born, non-U.S. citizens. We've gone through this data before with the St. Louis Fed. And not only that, not a single job in manufacturing, construction, or mining was created. Those 200,000 jobs are government, professional class, and those who serve on them, who wait on them and serve them. Rebuilding American roads, bridges, protecting and expanding affordable healthcare, highways, ports, and airports, and water systems to beating Big Pharma. That's hilarious. Joe Biden's administration is filled with lobbyists from Big Pharma. Filled with lobbyists from Big Pharma. And lowering the cost of prescription drugs, including $35 a month insulin for seniors. Again, how many times does that have to be told? Donald Trump did the insulin. He started that program, not Joe Biden. To providing student debt relief for nearly 5 million Americans, to a historic investment in combating climate change. More importantly, we have an economic vision to run on that soundly beats Trump and the MAGA Republicans. That's funny because it seems like you're trying with your rhetoric to clone MAGA. They're siding with the wealthy and the big corporations, and we are siding with the working people of America. It wasn't an isolated moment for Trump to stand at Mar-a-Lago and tell the oil industry they should give him $1 billion and he will do whatever they want. Bro, that's not what he said, broski. This guy, man. Anyway, on to page 2, and then we'll get the testers before it's over here because we're running out of time. Here is page 2. Let me take a sip of coffee. That's whose side Trump and the MAGA Republicans are on. Trump and the MAGA Republicans want another $5 trillion in tax cuts. It's like, look at how many times he says Trump and MAGA Republicans over the next 3 paragraphs. Let's count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 times in 3 paragraphs. I didn't even count the ones before that. He must say Trump and the MAGA Republicans. I don't even know how many times. We need to look that up. That's I think that's kind of important. Because why? He's trying to scare Democrats. Trying to scare them. All right. We know the way to build the economy is from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down. It's just never. It's trickle down economics on steroids, he says about Trump and the MAGA Republicans. This is, what's going to happen? Even Democrats who aren't like in front of a camera, of course, because then they lie. They're going to look at this and they're going to say, what planet is this lady on? And no, I didn't misspeak. What planet is this lady on? Because I know Joe Biden wrote this statement. What planet is he on? Inflation is through the roof. It has completely eaten away all wage growth under his presidency. Voters overwhelmingly trust Trump to handle inflation and cost of living better than Joe Biden. It's one of his biggest advantages. He has a double-digit advantage. I think it's like 20 points. I have to go look it up, but I think it's like 17 to 20 points on who do you trust to handle the economy. There's huge numbers. What do you think America's seniors will think when they know Trump and the MAGA Republicans want to take away the $35 insulin as well as Trump did the insulin? Laura, this is so frustrating. The media is only at least calling out some of his BS now because they're like Molly Hemingway said. But they're so deeply corrupted still. It's really remarkable. It's really remarkable. This is like Trump going into office and saying, and then we passed the Affordable Care Act. Like, no, you didn't. It was Barack Obama. If Trump tried to take credit for something Obama did, do you think that would be allowed to stand without, Come on. Well, what do you think American families are going to think when they find out Trump and the MAGA Republicans want to hit them with a new $2,500 national sales tax on all the imported products they buy? That's such bullshit. He means a tariff, which he just supported. I'm sorry. We are the ones lowering costs for family. Oh my God. Like, what I'm saying is, I think every and any, including Mark Warner, any Democratic lawmaker who reads this is going to be reassured of only one thing: that he's senile. Nothing he says here is true. And they're going to say, what polls is this guy looking at? Like, nobody believes this. Like, where does he think, or she, because again, this was written by Joe Biden, how on earth does he think people are going to buy this? This is crazy. I mean, this is really insane. This is truly nuts. I don't know. I really don't know. But we got well, we do know actually. Actually, Laura, we do know how they're going to react or did react. I mean, some of the ones that were on the fence, we now know we're waiting for them to respond after something like this, and they have now. I mean, somebody like Tester, anyway, he has, which we'll read in a second. Let me get through this real quick. What are we at? 152. All right. I mean, the all BS. Let's get to where it was. We are the ones who will bring real Supreme Court reform. In other words, we are the ones who will pack the Supreme Court. Donald Trump and his majority want more of the same from the court. First of all, he just admitted Donald Trump as a majority. Right? Am I wrong? Number two, he just admitted that Trump and the majority don't want to pack the Supreme Court. They want more of the same from the court. In other words, they intend to keep it a 9-justice court. Think about that. Puerto Rico, statehood. Votes at the Senate. Would be you don't think that the court's going to end up packed? Now, this is where he gets to the kicker of it. And we are standing up for American democracy. After January 6th, Trump has proven that he is unfit to ever hold the office of the president. We can never allow him anywhere near that office again, and we never will. Sounds like lawfare to me. So for 1 second, Laura, he's super concerned about the will of the sovereign voter, of course, when it deals with his primary. But him getting his ass kicked right now by the same, because the same sovereign voter is picking Donald Trump, he is still planning, so you read between the lines right there. We cannot allow him, and we can never allow him anywhere near that office again, and we never will. Yeah, marinate on it. But it's going to be a fun transition period, don't you think? My fellow Democrats, we have the record, the vision, and the fundamental commitment to America's freedom and our democracy to win. The question of how to move forward has been well aired for over a week now, and it's time for it to end. We have one job, and that is to beat Donald Trump. We have 42 days to the Democratic Convention and 119 days to the general election. Any weakening of resolve or lack of clarity about the task ahead only helps Trump and hurts us. It is time to come together, move forward as a united party, and defeat Donald Trump. Wow. All right, 155. While we have time, let's just get Senator Tester's. Let me get the. I'll have to zoom back out, and I will, so bear with me. Let's get Tester's statement, shall we? Here is Senator John Tester. This is after that letter went out, and of course, that letter went out to John Tester. The letter we just read. He also got, of course, a communication from what's his name, Mark Warner, and he was waiting for Biden to respond, and this is how he responded. President Biden has got to prove to the American people, including me, that he's up to the job for another 4 years. Meanwhile, I'll continue to do what I've always done: stand up to President Biden when he's wrong, and protect our Montana way of life. U.S. Senator John Tester. This is a guy trying to fence ride so hard his ass cheeks are ripped apart. He's from Montana. He's in deep, deep trouble. He is forecasted to lose, although I think he's no pushover, and his odds of surviving are being understated, I think. I do. He's a tough dude. If he is not seen, well, I don't want to say it like that. It is what it is. I think it's worthwhile because, of course, he is a very vulnerable Democratic senator, and I think it's worthwhile to go over what he has to say in response to that. But that letter was too. Those who are passing that around, Mark Warner and Ellsworth, others, it was Stephen Jones, really less so him, but, people around Harris who are saying, you know what, this is your time, you could do this. If you're Kamala Harris, she's a moron, so I'm not sure she'll understand this. If you're Kamala Harris, you absolutely do not want to run against Donald Trump right now. You want to run against Donald Trump's replacement. Okay? Oh, no. Okay, I'll look at it because we only got 2 minutes anyway. He's apologizing for interrupting the show. This is from Kristen Holmes at CNN. RNC News. Amber Rose, a reality TV personality and model who shocked fans by endorsing Donald Trump for president earlier this year, is going to speak at the Republican National Convention next week. A source familiar tells CNN. Holy crap. This is why it's like becoming cool to be a Republican under Donald Trump. The Trump campaign has announced the themes for the 2024 RNC Monday. Make America wealthy once again. Tuesday, make America safe once again. It's an anti-crime, anti-illegal immigration, anti-drug message. Wednesday, make America strong once again. Thursday, make America great once again. That ain't a bad idea. That's not horrible. Thanks for that. And it's all right. I know you never text me during the show. That was important. I mean, the Rose thing is a big deal. Some of these celebrities and comedians and others, this is a big deal. It's like the dam is broken here. Snoop Dogg, dude, the dam is broken. I know he's not going to speak there, but you got the Teamsters. You got people from the entertainment industry that were, not exactly known as MAGA. Different direction. The Teamsters is huge. Better. As far as I understood it, he was getting a primetime spot, the president of the Teamsters. If they take that away from him or they somehow don't do that or they decide to go against that, that would be incredibly stupid. The Teamsters should have a prime time spot. All right. With that in mind, I'm out like trout. Don't forget, if you like the videos, like them. Share them far and wide. If you are on YouTube, take a minute right now. Just go on over to Rumble, subscribe over there as well, and like the video. It does so much for our advertisers. And then also, of course, or I would say the ability to attract advertisers. And then, of course, and the algorithm, But the best place to follow us is on Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com. And a thank you, of course, to those advertisers. Go check out the links are all in the description. The new health kits, the new contagion kits from the wellness company. They're amazing. Our friends, of course, at Jam and Bean, who's been with us for a while, and Freedom Gold USA. Don't forget to take advantage of that before the raffle ends and they close that raffle off, because honestly, you got pretty good odds to winning some extra free currencies. I mean, you got some good odds of doing that. All right. And then what else? Public Polling Project. Link is in the description. I'm going to go ahead and wrap that up and package it up and send it out to locals. Like I said, remarkably consistent on some of these demographics. White, working class, Biden, 25% ballpark. And then ironically, on the flip side of that, the black vote, 25% for Donald Trump. I mean, just very consistent over the course of all of those days. All right. That's it, though. I will see you Wednesday on Inside the Numbers. Look, locals, keep an eye on for this me like popping up on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Like I said, the girls are leaving next week, which kind of like blunts the plans. I don't want to start something, and then that's why I would do it on everywhere. But same thing goes for you, YouTube, if you're members, although it would be great if you would just pop on over to locals. Everything would be so much easier. But we respect it, and we love you for it either way. We love you for the support either way. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. We'll see you on Wednesday, folks. Be good. Don't do anything stupid. And remember, listen for the BS. Once you get a meter, it never goes away. Deuces!